Welcome to part 2 in my video series on why won't this old diesel shut off. This video is specific to those models from 1977 and 1985 that had a vacuum shut-off control on the back of the fuel injection pump. And I explained in part 1, the theory of how this works, and I did some basic troubleshooting, and at the end of the video, I gave you a hint as to what the problem was. Because I explained, well, you've either got a bad pump, or you've got a bad vacuum shutoff valve on the back of the injection pump, or you have a leak somewhere in the system that's draining vacuum away, preventing the vacuum from getting to the shutoff valve and shutting the engine off. The engine should shut off after 1 or 2 seconds. If it doesn't, you have a leak probably somewhere in the system, or you could have a bad vacuum pump. And I ended the video with a little mini quiz. I actually left a hint as to what the problem was and kind of zoomed in on the engine. And a number of you got the answer right. Apparently you've been around these old diesel engines. So let me show you how I isolated the problem, what it is, and how I'm going to fix it. This is a scene I left you with in part 1. And some of you immediately, saw this. You were studying the picture and thinking, well, what's this white thing down here? And I know some of you probably had this problem and fixed it this way. But this is not a factory part, is it? You golfers will definitely recognize this. And I use these golf tees when I'm troubleshooting vacuum leaks. So what happened was I determined by testing that I had a good pump, I had a good shutoff valve, so I knew there was a leak somewhere. So I started plugging off these circuits that go to various vacuum systems in the car. I checked the valve on top of the steering lock, and that was working properly. I plugged off this green and yellow line that goes to the air conditioning, and that didn't make any difference. But as soon as I unplugged this, put the golf tee in here, the engine shut off in less than 2 seconds. So the problem is a leak somewhere in this vacuum circuit, and for those of you that are familiar with this, this is what goes to the door lock system in these W123s. Now I have to find where the leak is. It could be a broken line, it could be one of the actuators in the door, it could be back in the trunk. And if you just try to guess where the leak is, you can spend an awful lot of time. So now I'm going to show you what I believe is the fastest way to find a leak in the vacuum door lock system on these cars. This is a smoke machine. It does what the title says. It creates smoke. And you add a special oil to it, hook it up to 12 volts, it heats up, and you'll start getting smoke coming out of this nozzle. So what I did is I got some smoke going, I plugged that into that circuit for the 2 yellow lines, and I found the leak in this car within 4 minutes. I started walking around the car looking for leaks, and it became very obvious. Unfortunately, when I did this, I didn't get the camera out and film it. I'll kind of explain here in a second how I found it, but I'm going to show you right now, using this machine on another car that I had a vacuum door lock problem, and you can get to see how this works, because this can save you a ton of time if you're chasing leaks in vacuum systems. I've got a little problem on my 109. The door locks are not working. So that probably means a vacuum leak somewhere in the system. So which door is it? It's probably an actuator. Who knows? It might be the tank, maybe the trunk. What's the best way to find out quickly where the vacuum leak is in these old vacuum door lock systems? Now, here's the line, the yellow line that goes to all the door lock systems. I had an old German buddy. He used to use cigarette smoke, but I'm not so sure that's the best way to go. So enter our smoking machine. So we thought, hey, let's take the smoking machine and find out if it can quickly find where the leak is in the vacuum system. So you have to let these things heat up for a while and get the oil inside hot. And once they get hot, Then we're going to see if we get smoke coming out of the nozzle, and then we can plug it into the vacuum line near the firewall. I think we got some smoke. What do we got here? Look at that smoke. Okay, let's plug it in. Get it plugged in quick. I can't get that plugged into that vacuum line. Hurry, hurry, quick. Now, where do you think? Who wants to wager which door is leaking? Look, the right side door's locked. That means they're probably working because of the pressure. Okay, let's go check the driver's side. Uh-oh, I see it. Oh, I see it. Oh no! Woo! Look at that. The left rear door's on fire, folks. We're going to let it run just a little bit longer and see if there's smoke from anywhere else. Because where there's smoke, there's vacuum leaks. While running this test, one thing you can do is move the locks manually up and down and then recheck, because it might be only leaking on one movement of the actuator. And I'm back here at the smoke machine checking fluid level. You want to make sure the fluid doesn't get too low. Also on these little smoke machines, if you got too much fluid in there, it won't get hot enough to smoke. Okay, we've run it for another 5 minutes here, and we don't see any more smoke. So after I plugged this in and let it run, I started walking around the car. And first thing I do is open the doors. You know, it's going to take a while because you haven't taken the door panels off, haven't uncovered anything. So you're looking for some residual smoke, either coming out of the bottom of a door panel or somewhere. And I walked around the back and I saw a little smoke coming out of the corner of the trunk. And let me show you what I found. When I opened the trunk, I had smoke kind of drifting everywhere, but I soon noticed that there was smoke coming out of this cover. And I looked down in here, and one of these rubber hoses was cracked, and you could see smoke coming right out of the hose. Now, this is the lock for the trunk. So when you're troubleshooting your door lock system, don't forget about the lock for the trunk. And also when you're in the trunk, if your car has a locking gas cap door, you want to check that as well. So put in a new hose, went back, plugged that in, started the car, hit the key, turned off. Problem fixed. So I think it's obvious that without this smoke machine, I could have spent considerable time finding that leak. I would have probably started with the doors, would have ended up taking the door panels off, checking those vacuum actuators in the doors. You can use a vacuum hand pump trying to build pressure, but finding the leak is something else. So this is highly recommended. The other thing I want to recommend to you is the golf tee. I would say just put a couple of these in your glove box. Because from my experience over the last 30 years, if your diesel engine won't shut off, about 40% of the time it's going to be the vacuum shutoff valve on the back of the injection pump. About 50% of the time, it's the vacuum door locks. The other 10% are problems with the vacuum pump or leaks in the brake booster and so on. But leaking vacuum door locks is the #1 issue because these cars have gotten so old. So when you've got your golf tee in the glove box and your engine won't shut off, first thing you want to do, you don't even need to get a vacuum gauge, is just come out and plug off those door lock circuits and see what happens.